questions. Interesting road trip for the Mariners this week. We'll say that. Looks like we're up and live on YouTube right about now. So, again, welcome in Marine Lair Podcast Sunday Night Live right here on our Instagram and YouTube page every single Sunday night to answer your questions on both Instagram and YouTube. If you're watching on Instagram, go over to our YouTube channel, hit subscribe, turn the notification bell on, and if you really want us to answer one of your questions, send us a super chat. We'd really appreciate it. And if you're watching on YouTube, go head on over to the Instagram. If you're not following already, go follow us on Instagram. We just passed 10,000 followers this week. Appreciate every single one of you for hitting a follow for us. It's just an incredible milestone that we can't say we're thankful enough. So make sure you take care of all that every Sunday night. Marine Lair Podcast, Sunday Night Live, every single Sunday at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, shout out to all you guys. Oh, also, TJ, turn your computer sound off. I can hear myself echoing.
Should be off.
Yeah, there it goes. Now it is. Okay. Anyway, let's get into it. You guys know the drill. We're here to take your guys' questions. We're here to hear what you guys want to have us talk about. So start firing away. Instagram people have started to fire off. If you're in the YouTube comments, send us what you want to send us. Where should we start? People are already kind of hopping around in the comments. If you live under a rock, Mariners were in D.C. this past weekend. They went 1-2 against the Nationals. They probably should have won more than that, but they salvaged the series by taking the Sunday game. So road trip done. Thank goodness. They went 4-6. Let's see what people are talking about here. This is I don't even know how to say this on Instagram. It's a bunch of random letters, but as bad as it felt, we all would have taken a 4-6 road trip. The sun also rises. Well,
would we have taken a 4-6 road trip?
I think I would have been okay with 5-5. I don't love the fact that they went 1-2 against the Nationals.
1-2 against the Nationals and like competitive against the Yankees, sure, but all the things we wanted or concerned that would happen on this road trip did in fact happen, which is what you wanted to say. I mean, the Orioles come out and they take your strength and they nullify it with the fact that they have really good bats, really good hitters in the zone, especially a guy like George Kirby who's got awesome stuff, but he throws a bunch of strikes and the Orioles go out there and they mash him. And then even the Nationals hit around your arms on the road all weekend. So I don't know if I would say 4-6. 5-5 was probably the floor. Again, we were taking this as okay, the Mariners are in first place. Let's go let them prove they deserve to stay in first place. And I don't think they didn't really do that. Not really this weekend. Nice animation there. Looks
good. I guess thumbs up, I guess. Yeah. They're very, very fortunate that the AOS is not playing very well right now. The Rangers are scuffling. The Astros are still well under 500. We don't even need to talk about the Angels or the A's. But, they salvaged the series this weekend. Getting 2 in New York was great. That was the highlight of the whole road trip. First 2 games in New York, the fact you got those games, massive. It's what happened after those 2 wins in New York. It was so disappointing. The fact you couldn't end up stealing the series in the Bronx after going up 2-0, then dropping the first 2 to the Nationals. Yeah, 5-5 would have been perfectly fine as a road trip. 4-6 for a first place team. I know it's a long road trip, far away from home. It's a lot of traveling. You play 2 really good teams, but you got to find a way to win the series you're supposed to win. When you play the Nationals, you've got gimmies. Look, Gore and Trevor Williams are both pitching pretty well this year, but regardless, you've got to find a way to win those games, and they did not have enough offense. There was too many tough at-bats to watch, and the good news is they have a light schedule going forward, but again, when you're in first place, you got to be capitalizing on this stuff, and that's what's frustrating, right? The Mariners could be so much further up in the division than they are right now. They're 3 games up. They could be about 8 up right now if everything was clicking the way we thought it was going to click.
Yeah. Should we talk about the subject of the title? Julio,
yeah.
We've gotten some questions on him. Some saying yes, he is back. Some saying no, he's not back. We can't say 2 games are what makes Julio Rodriguez back. But I think everything that you would want to see from Julio being back was there in this entire series. First game, he wasn't incredible. I think he had a couple outs to the outfield, hitting the ball in the air, and then finally over the latter 2 games, He goes yard twice. He looks very competent at the plate, which is, again, just for some of the times we've seen him this season not look good. It was good to see him look comfortable. And Mike Blowers was noting on the television broadcast how balanced he looked, and he wasn't falling forward out of the batter's box as he's swinging. Just so unbelievably massive. Let's just notice what happens when Julio Rodriguez hits the ball over the fence and what it does to this offense. How enormous is it? How much does this offense change when Julio starts hitting the way he's hitting like he did today? And even though someone as important as Jorge Polanco goes out of the game, but because Julio's hitting the way he is, you're less worried about it.
He drives the whole offense. Look how different everything is when Julio's at his best. I don't know why this thumbs up thing keeps happening. I don't know how to turn it off. So sorry to people on Instagram. But I have no idea why it keeps going off. So sorry about that. Look at what happened today. He hits a home run. He has a couple late hits. The Mariners put up 9 runs. All's right all of a sudden, right? He's on time. He's spraying the ball. He's hitting for power. When Julio's right, things are much, much more comfortable in Mariners land than when he's struggling. Now, we're going to have to see more than 2 games to say he's fully back. But see what he did over the course of Saturday and Sunday. It's a pretty positive sign, especially because, again, moving forward, honestly, June and July, look at the Mariners' schedule, people. It's not that difficult. There's a series on the road against the Royals. There's a series on the road against Cleveland. There's a series against the Orioles at home in July. There's a couple of tough ones in there. There's not a lot. There's a lot of Astros games, team that's not winning right now. There's a lot of Angels games. There's some A's games mixed in there. There's some games and series against bad teams in there. There's a lot of games to capitalize on in June and July. So if this is the time Julio's going to heat up, when the Mariners can really jump on some of these teams, great. It would have been great if the first 2 months were a little bit different. But if June and July are when he really starts to elevate and take off, maybe the rest of the Mariners offense can take off with him, because his hitting is so contagious in this lineup. When he hits, you see a lot of other guys hit. Look what happened to Ty France today. Julio hits. Ty's got more protection. He starts seeing more pitches. Ty starts hitting. He had a home run. He had a hit late. Julio does so much for this offense. It just cannot be stated enough how important he is.
Yeah, I echo and agree with that 100% of the time. I mean, you mentioned these last 2 months. I want to get even more specific than that. First of all, the next 11 games are all against division opponents. That's a huge plus. You can make you can give yourself some real separation in this division by just having a good next week and a half. Like, seriously, Astros are coming to town starting tomorrow. This is a time that, as the Astros are getting hot, to put the foot back down and stretch your lead back. You don't want the Astros to get much confidence and gain some ground on you in the division. Not how they looked early in the season. And even if they're swinging the bat well now, you just can't let them come into Seattle and let that happen. And then all the other division games, again, always so important. But the most simplistic way to look at this, Lyle, is the Mariners have the easiest remaining schedule. Now, it does help. They haven't played many division games yet, and every single other AL West team is under 500 right now, which certainly softens that schedule a little bit. And we know those division games are tough. Regardless, the Mariners have to go out and they have to win some of those games. That's just what makes it so important now. And as we get to June, we're at essentially evaluation time for a lot of guys, because we said, okay, June 1st is when we will give a proper evaluation of the hitters doing well, if a starter's doing well, and we can start to draw some conclusions, and the Mariners might start to draw some conclusions as well, as in terms of roster shuffling and what the best path is moving forward. Lyle, I have a really good question here on YouTube.
I think I saw it too.
Yeah. This is from, it ends with, I think, jujitsu, something like that. So who was the better prospect, you or me?
In terms of like Lyle versus TJ, that's what he's saying,
Baseball
right?
prospect. Yeah.
Why don't you answer that?
Well, I never played on varsity, so that probably hurts me in this scenario. But if we're just talking about tools, Lyle, I'm your prototypical middle infielder, even though I never played middle infield.
What makes you a
my build is a second baseman.
Okay.
Light
Okay.
hitting. I stand 5'10", right? I like to go by scrappy because I have no other defining tools. So yeah, I think that would be me. But you played varsity, so that kind of hurts me.
Well, I guess I'll go with me. I mean, I could play a little bit in high school. This is what I always tell people is like when I say I had a chance to play college baseball, well, actually I don't really say that, but what I will say is like if I really wanted to go play at some pretty low run JUCO somewhere, I'm sure I could have gone and played junior college baseball somewhere. I don't think it was going to be at any of the top tier NWAC schools or anything like that. Not Everett, not some of the schools that win NWAC titles a lot, which is the local JUCO league around here. But if I wanted to play somewhere, I'm sure I could have played somewhere. It wasn't worth it for me though to go to some junior college, kind of play baseball for a couple years with not much, end goal in sight. It was just like, well, you got this passion to do sports media, just go to school to do sports media. I was pretty sure about that once I was, for a while, but especially when I got serious thinking about school senior year, I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to play community college ball.
Well,
So
looking back on it, you probably could have made the 2016 ASU team. Or 2017 it
2017,
was. Yeah, you
ooh,
could have made that.
man, don't let it be fooled. Don't let yourself get fooled, people. ASU historically might be a great baseball school. Not in 2017 and 2018, they were. In fact,
No.
I
No,
think
that's why you could have made it very
I think
easily.
we should have actually held walk-on tryouts for everybody associated now with the Marine Layer Pod. All Marine Layer Pod fans, welcome to try and walk on to the ASU baseball team. It's like that movie Invincible with the Eagles and Vince Papale. Just let everybody try and walk on to the ASU baseball team. That's how bad they were those 2 years. So, oh man, what a time. That is a good question. And we always tell you guys too, we're happy to answer Mariner questions, but if you want to send us funny stuff like that, you guys are more than welcome to do that because those are always fun to mix in here too. But I've got a good one. Getting back to Mariner stuff. From Steve B, 8727 on Instagram. Looks like Polanco's going to the IL. I will say we don't know yet. Let's see what the results are tomorrow, if it's just a day-to-day thing or if it's really an IL spin. But to the point of the question, let's say he does. He asks Taylor or Bliss or Marlowe coming up. Who do you want? I'll throw in one more name too, because I talked about it with TJ earlier. More likely than Marlowe because they need an infielder. I'll say Michael Chavis. So let's flip those guys around.
Did he say Urias?
No, he didn't. Oh, and there's one more.
Yeah,
Urias.
well, I would say Urias is first on the list, judging that he was on the big league roster this week.
Yeah, he's probably most likely to come back up unless the Mariners are
he's
very
making
serious.
and he's making a big league salary too.
Unless the Mariners are very serious about getting him some real at-bats in AAA to try to get some things right with him. If that's the case, maybe you see somebody else. That being said, I find it hard to believe that just because they say they want to get Urias at bats down in AAA, they would then call Ryan Bliss up over him just for the purpose of a 2-week stint. Doesn't really feel like they do that with somebody like Ryan Bliss. If they call Ryan Bliss up, it feels like it's with the intention to be a little bit more permanent. So if you're going to see Bliss up, I don't think it's with the purpose of he's here for 2 weeks, plays at 5 games, and goes back down. If that's what's going to happen, you'll probably see Urias.
And Urias will, if Polanco's out, will be playing every day. So those at-bats will be there regardless of which level he's at. So if he's...
I don't know if he will.
Yeah.
Because if Polanco's out, you slide Rojas to second, and all of a sudden Demo's playing a lot of third.
I still think that if they were to call him up, he would be playing more often than not. I'll say that. If they actually make that decision, it's with the intention of him playing more.
Oh, you know what they do? They'd probably just put Demo at second, and Rojas and Urias go back to platooning at third.
Right. Yeah, but I'll say they would want their best roster possible if Polanco's on the IL. Even if you think Ryan Bliss might have a longer term future on this big league roster, Luis Urias makes the Mariners roster better right now. So you bring him back up, you put him on the roster, and you've already used the option. So bring him back up. Don't have to move him off the roster. You're paying him a big league salary, and knowing how the franchise operates monetarily, it just makes a whole lot of sense for them to do that.
Sure. Do we want to talk about some potential big bats next? Or is Ronald Acuna done for the year?
Is he? No. I thought he just sprained his ACL.
I just got a passive notification that I know this isn't Mariners related, but I just saw it. Let's see.
I hope not. It was non-contact.
Yeah, I just got a passive notification saying something about it.
Man, yeah, I just saw that. Yeah, he is done for the year.
Oh my God,
complete tear of the ACL.
That's his second ACL surgery, man. That's terrible.
That's awful.
That is awful. Jeez, man.
That stinks. Yeah, so he tore his ACL when they won the World Series, comes back in 22. Isn't like he's good, but we can tell he's still recovering from that injury. Then he wins the MVP, and now this happens.
Terrible.
Sucks.
Jeez. Okay. Do we want to? I'll let you pick, DJ. Do you want to go bullpen questions first or bats first? We've got questions about both.
Let's do bats. Well, both equally large issues, but I think people want to hear about bats. What do we think?
Start with this.
As we addressed this on Friday, we ran through what?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just going to make the same point as you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so there's a lot of questions in here about it, and too long to credit everyone, but thank you guys all for the questions about the potential trade targets for bats. We ran through a bunch of options on Friday's show about potential bats. Vladdy, Bo Bichette, Brent Rooker, Pete Alonso, Christian Walker, and I'm missing
Luis Robert.
And Luis Robert. Okay, I think those are, and then honorary Kyle Tucker. But we have spent a lot of time on Kyle Tucker, leading the American League in home runs and I think WRC plus right now. So
we've got comments in here about Kyle Tucker. Someone just asked Vladdy or Tucker if you can only have one. Oh, Kyle Tucker without a second of thought. Literally not even a second of thought. So.
Kyle Tucker and $400 million if he wants it right now.
Yes, correct. Pay him the money, Mariners.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's because Tucker's like an obvious one, so we can push him aside. About the other ones, after thinking about it a little more, does one intrigue you more? I would say in terms of most intrigue beyond this year is Vladdy. Just this year would be Christian Walker.
Really?
Yeah.
After thinking on it more, I think my guy would be Brent Rooker of all of them, to be honest with you. Most club control, continues to hit. I don't know if the fact that he loves Seattle already is kind of a plus, but I just like the idea of a guy that really works into your plan long term. And he feels like a guy too, where I know he's really an outfielder and a DH strictly right now. If you were to trade for him this year, you'd probably just move Rayleigh to first and put Rooker in the outfield, even though Rooker's defense isn't great. But that feels like a guy where if you give him an off season and tell him, hey, we want you to play first base long term, he'd learn it. He could learn it. That could be Brent Rooker could fill the first base hole long term. So I think the club control, the way he's hitting, I know the strikeouts are a little concerning, but of all the guys, I think I like the idea of Rooker. Vladdy's bat is just declining. I know he's had a few better games as of late. Shit's not hitting. Robert's got injury problems. Pete and Walker, free agents at the end of the year. I think if you're going to throw Kyle Tucker aside, my guy would be Rooker.
Yeah, and I like Rooker too. I'm not totally sold he gets moved, though. I'm not.
What do the A's have to gain by keeping him, though?
What do they have to gain by trading him right now?
Is his value ever going to be higher?
It could. It could be. It depends. You never know. It's unlikely. Yeah. But with 4 years of control left, they don't have to. Meanwhile, we know for a fact the Blue Jays almost certainly will trade one of their guys because they can't pay both of them.
Sure, but the A's have guys that are much younger than Rooker that have more of a chance to be part of their long-term plans, assuming sooner or later, if Rooker keeps playing like this, he's getting traded. I know Ryan Noda didn't hit this year, and he's down in Vegas right now in AAA. That's a guy that feels like he could be in their long-term plans with how much control he has. So Noda's an example. Soderstrom's an example. I'm not saying all these guys are going to pan out for the A's, but the A's have guys that are much younger and feel like they will truly be with the team when they go to Vegas, where Rooker's, he's not going to be around forever. One way or another, he's getting traded. So I don't know if it's this year. I don't know if it's in 2 years, but his value is never going to be higher than it is this year. So it feels like paired with the age, paired with the fact that, again, he's just going to be on a losing team for a while if they don't trade him. I really wouldn't be shocked to see Rooker get traded.
It's fair. That's fair. Yeah, and for what the Mariners need, we joked about it. He would fit right in because he strikes out a lot. He walks, but he's going to strike out like 31% of the time. So fits right into the lineup. He'll add the power component they need. And even though he's on the older side, like we've said, he's got a lot of control left. So it's overall intriguing. I think the popular names still seem to be the Blue Jays guys, though.
I'm seeing a lot of Kyle Tucker in the comments.
Well, okay, like again, yes, because he's the best hitter in the American League right now. So obviously, yes.
Okay, I just like to quickly say, there's some question: will we trade Miller or Wu to get Tucker? Absolutely not. The Mariners are not trading pitching for anybody they're going to acquire. And number two, to whoever this loser is in the comments, Jeremy Bush. I don't know who you are, but no chance the Astros trade Tucker. You're wrong. I have my own personal sources saying otherwise. Whoever that guy is, who sounds awful. But anyway, get back to he's a friend of ours for people that are not picking up on the joke. Like, that's a friend of ours in the comments. But anyway, to get back to some of the comments, yes, the Blue Jays guys are viable, right? Because they don't have a ton of club control. The Blue Jays are clearly about to tear it down to some extent, and it doesn't seem like both of those guys are getting extended, if either of them are getting extended. Of those two, if we want to talk about the Blue Jays guys, because to your point, they seem to be the two guys that people keep circling back to. There's plenty of Vladdy stuff here in the comments too. I would probably take Vladdy over Bichette. There is a bigger chance that first base / DH is a bigger need long term than middle infield. And the fact, plain and simple, Vladdy's just hitting way better than Bichette right now, and might cost a little less because he's got no defensive value.
And he's got a more sustainable offensive profile too. We highlighted how Bichette, he's going to swing a lot, and if he's not going to make contact at a high rate, which he's not this year, it's his offensive stats are going to suffer. Vladdy, meanwhile, even while having a quote unquote down season, is still just crushing the baseball. He doesn't strike out and he walks a bunch. Mm-hmm. That checks off all the boxes. Overall, value-wise in the field, like he's a subpar base runner. He is not a great defensive first baseman. His WAR is not going to be off the charts. But he could just be an offensive tweak away, really, because he's got everything else offensively at the plate in terms of bat speed, in terms of swing choice. For the most part, as an outsider, it doesn't seem like as much work to get Vladdy right as it would to get Bichette right, or hope that Bichette, turns around and sustains into the future. The other thing I think about, it might be more affordable for the Mariners long term if they were somehow able to swing Vladdy and extend him. So Vladdy's going to make, again, in arbitration next year, is projected to make in the upper 20s. I said 26. The arbitration cases vary, but he's a Super 2 guy, which means next year's his fourth year of arbitration. He's making $20 million this year. It could be $26 or $27 million in what Vladdy's owed next year. But in terms of a long-term contract with him, I don't think he'll cost that much every year. Unless next year he turns back into his MVP form, he might cost $20 million for the future.
Right. But, yeah, to your point, a first baseman only with no defensive value who has not played at an MVP level in a couple of years, you're right, is not going to cost the world in free agency. And he's not a Boris guy. So if the Mariners were serious about making him their first baseman long term, yeah, that's possible. They might try to extend him on a more of a friendly contract. If you believe that Vladdy Jr. for the next, whatever they give him a contract for, 5 years, can be a 120 WRC plus guy, which is close to an all-star first baseman. Maybe it's a little shy of an all-star first baseman, but that is a very good, productive first baseman.
Right.
So, sure, if you were going to make Vladdy an extension like that, I think that would make a lot of sense. But again, to answer people's questions that are putting it in the comments, any trade for the Mariners that involves any of the 5 guys in the rotation, especially Miller or Wu, does not happen. Any trade involving those guys gets shut down. Those guys they're not going anywhere. The Mariners have made it very clear that they will not mortgage those guys. They will not give up those guys. That is the backbone of their team right now, along with Julio.
What about for Kyle Tucker?
I still don't think for Kyle Tucker they do it.
Really?
I think they package a lot of prospects for Tucker. I don't think they're giving up a starting pitcher for Tucker. That's what I said from the start about this whole thing anyway. Go back to the original video I made, and I've been very, very firm about that take from the start. If it involves a starting pitcher, it's shut down. You can't afford to give one of those guys up. That is the backbone of your team. You have arguably the best rotation in baseball.
I agree they can't afford to give them up. I 100% agree with that. Like, they cannot. They cannot. But Kyle Tucker's the best hitter in the AL right now.
Yeah.
So they might. That's ultimately one of the 10,000 reasons why this might not happen is because that would probably be the cost.
Listen, again, I think you could package a lot of. I think you could package a lot of high-level prospects for him.
Again, if you were to draw a ballot for American League MVP right now, where is he? What is he? Third? Second?
He's somewhere in the mix, obviously, with Judge, Gunnar, and Juan Soto.
Third is the floor for him right now.
Yeah, for sure. Again, I think it would cost a lot of prospects. I don't think the trade happens if it involves Miller or Wu.
I don't think so either, but I still think that could be the price, which is, again, why it would be unlikely. But hey, never say never.
If you could make that, like again, if there's a trade that happens that involves Tucker getting an extension, like for example, if the Mariners have called his agent, had talks saying, hey, if he's here, he's open to the idea, then okay, like do what you have to do if he's going to get an extension long term. I still don't think the Mariners would ever do it if it costs a starting pitcher. So I think any trade involving those guys is shut down. Somebody asked about Josh Naylor to transition a little bit in the comments too. I don't think he's going anywhere. The Guardians are playing way too well, and he's playing way too well for him to get traded right now.
Right.
So, yeah.
Oh, there's some Abe Toro talk in the YouTube comments. Great.
I was going to say we got sidetracked from that, but I was going to tell you somebody said Steve Irving 117 WRC plus. Man, TJ, if there's a package trade for those two, you're going to have to come on this podcast and sing yourself coming home. I'm coming home.
Man, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to have to prepare a statement. We're gonna tweet out a statement, and then I'm gonna read it to open the podcast because I need to save face.
Maybe our way to bury the hatchet would be to have Abe on, do an in-person interview, and just bury it all.
Hey, buddy, I might have said that you were the worst player I've ever seen in my life. Things have changed.
How much would okay, we can start to tie this to the whole reliever thing. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but what would, hypothetically, because I don't think the Mariners end up trading for him, but just for the sake of the exercise, what would a Brent Rooker, Mason Miller package cost? Because the Mariners need bullpen help big time. I'm not saying it's going to, again, Miller's the one I don't think that actually happens. Rooker, there's a chance, but what would a package like that cost? Probably a lot, right? Probably like three or four of your top 10 prospects.
Well, we know what Eddie cost.
Eddie costed 2 top 100 prospects. So yeah.
Right. And how many? Eddie had 3 years of control left.
Right. Miller's got what, 4.5?
Yeah, 4.5. Whew. 2 top 100s and a couple big leaguers. There's money exchanging hands too, but yeah, it's like, well, one of Cole Young and Harry Ford, certainly. Then
I don't know about throwing out names because I don't know who values who more. Yeah. So it would be a couple of top 100 prospects.
Two of the Mariners' top 6 prospects would be gone.
Right. Along with maybe a big leaguer.
Yeah, and then pick a couple fringe big leaguers, offload money. Like that's what the Mets did with their trade. So, or give the return goes down if the A's offload money too if you take on a contract. So
right,
yeah. It would be expensive for a reliever. It would be we're talking about the most expensive 3 innings per week that you could possibly get.
Right,
and once you do that, then you expect yourself to sign Mason Miller because you don't, even with his control available, you don't trade prospects like that to only have a guy throw on his rookie deal. It's bad business.
4.5 years.
Still,
I don't know if you extend a guy that far out, but not a reliever.
Maybe you wouldn't do it now, but you'd eventually do it.
Yeah, that could be. Assuming he keeps this up, yeah.
Right. Just it doesn't make as much sense to send that in a prospect package for someone you don't intend to be in your organization however long in the future.
Yeah.
So it's like the same thing with the Mets. Edwin had all of the negotiating power when he signed his extension because you guys gave up the farm for me.
Right. All right, let's do some bullpen talk here. I've got one. I've got one fun one before we actually get into real talk. This is from Steve Irving too on YouTube. Who would win in a potato sack race between Gabe Fryer and Taylor Saucedo? Two guys who, might I add, are good friends. I like the question.
I think Gabe and Taylor, if he's somehow watching us on Instagram right now, I don't think he's the most, what's the right word? Potato
Agile?
sack athletic. Just seems a little bit too, I think the lankier you are, the tougher it is.
Okay.
So while Taylor might have longer jumps, I think he also would be more likely to trip and fall during the race.
Yeah, I'd probably lean toward Gabe of those two also. So I think we're in agreement on that. But if we want to get into some talk about the bullpen, yeah, where do we want to start? Because people had some questions about it. Like,
so
somebody
there's
asked,
what's Gmo _44 here on Instagram. Stanek equals panic ? So are we
No.
concerned about Ryan Stanek?
Look, he hasn't, his year as a whole, I'm sure hasn't been what he's wanted it to be. But you look at his past 4 or 5 outings before today, they were pretty good. And Scott even said he thought Stanek looked good in today's outing. He just thought Abrams got the barrel on a really good pitch and took advantage of it. So it didn't sound like Scott was overly concerned about Stanek. I think, again, look at his last 5 appearances. He really looked like he was starting to turn a corner before today. And hopefully this was just a blip on the radar. And moving forward, he really does prove that he's turned a corner. But no, again, like, I don't know how people expect guys to be getting shipped off or whatever right now, because outside of Andres Munoz, there's questions kind of throughout the bullpen right now. There's a lot of guys that are going through it a little bit. So these guys just can't all be replaced. And guys like, again, relievers do go through it at different points of the season, but guys like Ryan Stanek, guys like Gabe, guys like Trent Thornton, you're going to lean on these guys this year because Matt Brash is out for the year, as we know, and Gregory Santos isn't going to be here till hopefully July, they say. You need those guys, and you can't just replace all of them. They already made a trade this week for Mike Baumann, and the trade market's not going to significantly open up for another month and a half. So you can't, like, you have to believe in your process and believe in what you have and the guys you brought in, and knowing they're here for a reason and that they can turn it around, because you cannot just replace all these guys. This is the group you're rolling with.
I also think Stanek has looked better. And even you can think about it this way. So he gave up the home run today. Home runs for relievers, like, they stink, but they also, because relievers pitch in such small samples, if you give up a home run, it just you could pitch have 5 excellent outings, give up 1 home run, it screws the rest of your stats up. And it doesn't fully capture how you've been pitching, which Stanek in his case has pitched better. But even if we just take today and we say, okay, well, today he wasn't great. Abrams hits a go-ahead home run off him. It's like, okay, well, he's the reliever in the game. You blame him for it or whatever. Well, Stanek outside of Andres Munoz is the best stuff in the bullpen. So it's not even a case of like, oh, he's not pitching well, we can get rid of him. Like, he's got the best makeup of a reliever stuff-wise of anyone in that bullpen besides Andres Munoz. So you don't really have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, it's the money you owe him. Just think of it this way. Would you want so Edward Brizardo just got sent down for Taylor Saucedo to come back on the roster. I got that transaction right? Who's Brizardo? Yeah, so let's say you think Edward Brizardo has pitched better at the big league level this year than Ryan Stanek has. Whose stuff would you rather have? That's not even really a question, right?
No.
So that kind of it closes the discussion on that. And you got to hope that in the end, for Ryan Stanek, the stuff wins out because he's got better stuff than everybody except Andres Munoz.
There's a reason Edward Brizardo got sent down today. If he was pitching so well, he wouldn't have gone anywhere. They sent him back to Tacoma. There's a reason for that. They're rolling with Stanek. They're rolling with Gabe Shire. They're rolling with Trent Thornton. They're rolling with these guys. Sauce, obviously, now that he's back. And these guys were so good last year. You have to trust that they're going to figure this thing out. Like, one, because there is plenty of track record to believe that they will. And number 2, if you really want to upgrade at some point on a bullpen arm, you're still going to have to wait until mid-July at least to see what the market looks like for you guys. So, yeah, now to answer the question in the YouTube comment from Teddy Fresh, Paul Sewald would be welcomed with open arms. Yes, he would. However, as cool an idea as that would be, and that's something we have talked about, you're not going to know till mid-July if he's even available because we have to see what the Diamondbacks look like. So we got to wait it out.
Yeah, the Mariners are going to get better in the bullpen. It's got to come within for the next 2 months. Like the guys pitching in the bullpen need to pitch better if they want to be better. The number today was 20 earned runs over the road trip out of 23 innings for the bullpen. That is that's horrible.
So and again, all circling back to you cannot pin this on one guy. Look, Munoz has been Munoz. He's been awesome, and he has been a savior for this team, not just the bullpen, this team. But it's a collective effort from the rest of the guys to turn that ship in the right direction. It is not one guy. You can't pin this on, just to use the sake of the comment here, you can't pin it on Ryan Stanek. You can't pin it on one guy. It's going to be a collective effort for those guys to turn that thing around. I believe that they will. I really do. Those are a good group of bullpen arms out there. But guys go through blips, even though this has been a pretty tough blip that they've collectively gone through right now. You got to trust that they're going to turn it around.
Yeah. You have no choice. Right. There's no choice.
No. Let's get back to some questions about some bats here because they're kind of rolling through in the Instagram comments. So I wanted to get back to a couple of those if you're good with that.
Yeah. Before you do that, just to remind everyone watching on both YouTube and Instagram, this is our Marine Lair podcast, Sunday Night Live. We're live every single Sunday at 7 p.m. Pacific on Instagram and on YouTube. If you're watching on Instagram, go head on over to our YouTube page, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're not already following us on Instagram, go over to our Instagram, give us a follow, like one of our reels, send us a DM, ask us a question, whatever. We'll be here every single Sunday night at 7 o'clock Pacific to answer your guys' questions. If you really want us to answer one of your questions, head on over to the YouTube chat, send us a super chat, and we'll be sure to answer it.
Yeah. One fun one before we get back to some questions about some hitters. Another fun question on the YouTube. This is from Friendly Neighborhood Gentile. Who wins in a race? Lyle without legs or Ty France? Well, I'm giving my vote of confidence to Ty France. I got to tell you, I like a person without legs. That's a tough race to be in.
Yeah,
just like trying to crawl on your knees down to first base. That is a tough scene.
Yeah, sorry, I got to take Ty too.
Yeah, I ran an OK 60 in high school. I think it was about a 7.2. I don't think I'm beating Ty France even running a race with my legs. He's like, I know people kind of harp on some of the corner infielders a lot of times in baseball. Like they're professional athletes. I don't think I'm beating them in a race. I'm flattered that you think I could beat a professional athlete in a race. I, however, do not have the confidence. So
that would be funny. We get that on pay-per-view. That'll be good. That'll be our first pay-per-view.
Me trying to race on my knees, just like dragging myself down to first base. My knees would be all scraped up by the end. I'd probably have like tape all over it. Like I'd have to like use athletic tape to try to heal up my knees and all that stuff. So okay, let's get to some questions here. We got a couple on the Instagram about some potential hitters. So let's hit on a couple. This one's from, I like this one. It's from B Abernat 21. It says Kerry Carpenter. Now, I don't know how much we've talked about this on the pod. I'm kind of a closet, not even closet. I was going to say closet Kerry Carpenter fan. I actually just really like Kerry Carpenter. Ever since he came to town last year, I didn't know like a ton about him before he was in town last year. I knew, he had a role with the Tigers. He had a little bit of power in the minors, but he had a great year last year, and he's having another really good year this year. And he's a really good hitter. I wouldn't be shocked if the Mariners like Kerry Carpenter too. Here's what the holdup is. The Tigers are in a window where I think they're trying to have this core group together moving forward, and I think they believe Kerry Carpenter is a part of that. Despite being a little bit of an older guy, he does have a lot of club control. Paired with, he's another platoon bat. He's a really good hitter, but he is a platoon bat. He does not hit lefties well at all. He crushes right-handed pitching. So you already have Dom Canzone. You already have Luke Raley, two guys who are pretty exclusive against right-handed pitching. I don't know where Kerry Carpenter fits into that equation. He'd be an awesome, awesome acquisition. I'd be fired up to get Kerry Carpenter. Again, I really like him, but I don't know where he fits, and I don't think the Tigers would trade him.
Yeah, he'd probably be expensive. And what happened the last time the Mariners brought in? He's an outfielder, right? Well, yeah. What was the last time the Mariners brought in a lefty platoon outfielder as a notable acquisition.
Well, he did some damage for the Nationals this week.
Yeah, exactly. Did you not think that ball he hit with the bases loaded was gone?
I did.
Yeah,
And
I
then
did too.
And then CJ Abrams, the very next at bat, just finished the job.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, that
Look,
would have been just that. I would have laughed. I would have laughed out of just how hilarious the game of baseball is.
you would have laughed out of pain and some genuine humor.
Yeah.
Oh,
it would be hilarious. He would talk about terrible. Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
So yeah, again, I can't stress it enough. I really like Kerry Carpenter. I just don't know if that one's in the plans. I don't know if the Tigers would trade him. So here's another one.
Yeah, I like that idea. I like it. But you're right. Just doesn't seem like something the Tigers would do.
Right. Now, if there's a way to make it work, like here's an example, right? If you want to try to do the math and try to sort some things around to make it happen, maybe that's a scenario where you move Luke Raley to first base if you make that trade. And if that happens, you start letting Dom hit more against lefties. Because again, there's a lot of people that think Dom can hit lefties. Maybe after half a season of just seeing righties, the Mariners would be okay working him more in lefties. And in that scenario, Dom more plays every day. And you see Kerry Carpenter more just play against the right-handed guys. Maybe there's a way to maneuver all that to make it work. And I like the idea a lot. I wouldn't be shocked if the Mariners like Kerry Carpenter a lot as a player because there's a lot to like. Just don't know if it's going to happen. So.
We have another race idea for you, Lyle, in the YouTube comments. What about Lyle versus Jesus Montero?
Is this before or after Jesus Montero gets distracted by a scout sending him ice cream?
Let's say before for the fun. Let's say it is the Jesus Montero the Mariners traded for. If you catch my drift.
AKA when he was regarded as being the next big thing.
Well, he was also fat, I think is more of what I was getting at.
He wasn't, not really at the time they traded for him.
Okay, so let's say then, because I think I'm going to try and interpret this question. I think what Austin on YouTube is suggesting is Lyle versus fat Jesus Montero.
All right, I feel like I might win that one.
Yeah.
Woo. Maybe there is one professional athlete out there that I could beat in the race. So I don't know what Jesus Montero's up to these days. I don't know if he's in better shape these days. I don't know. If you're talking about me now versus whatever it was, 2015 Jesus Montero, maybe I can win that race. Maybe. Maybe.
I'd assume so. Were there any other bats you want to get to? Because I think there's a subject on YouTube that just got brought back up that we can touch on here for a second.
Yeah, there are a couple. So hold that question for just a minute here. We got one from Aiden on Instagram that says, "Did you see the Mariners trying to buy low on Nolan Jones from the Rockies?" That's another interesting idea. Nolan Jones was awesome last year in a year that was so forgetful for the Rockies. Nolan Jones had an awesome year in Colorado. He really lit it up at Coors Field. This year, it's been a tough go for him. Really tough go. I'm talking his WRC plus is currently below 50.
Oh.
So I understand what he's saying by could the Mariners buy low? Maybe he wouldn't cost a ton. But I like the idea from Aiden. Issue here is, if you go back and listen to Friday's podcast, which we encourage all of you to do, because we really broke down a lot of guys like TJ talked about, for those who missed it earlier, in terms of the Mariners trading for an impact bat. If you're trying to get this thing right and really make a trade for a guy who's going to move the needle, I don't know if Nolan Jones is that guy. That feels more like a guy who's going to who you're trying to thread the needle with rather than move the needle with.
You could not, in good faith, trade for Nolan Jones and put him in the lineup.
Not right now.
No.
If this was Nolan Jones from last year, sure.
Yeah.
Not right now.
No.
So
no.
The other one I want to get to, though, before we get back to your question, this one isn't even in the comments, but I just figured we'd touch on it because we didn't touch on any of these guys on Friday's show. Now, maybe we will on a show moving forward, because we did get a couple questions from people saying, like after that podcast, saying if the Mariners were going to try to get cute with a trade or thread the needle with a trade and not really make a huge splash, who could some of those guys be? And we may do a podcast about that at some point too. But we didn't really talk about any of the Rays guys on Friday's podcast. Isak Paredes is the one that's like, he could maybe be more in that surefire category. The problem is he isn't, because his batted ball profile draws a lot of red flags because he doesn't hit the ball that hard, and he's kind of a merchant of the short left field porch in Tampa. But the one I was going to kind of circle back to was, would they look at Yandy Diaz if they're serious about trying to find an impact guy? A guy who started very slow, but if you look at what he's done in the last month, he's starting to heat up a little bit. So I'm sure they need more evaluation on this and see what he looks like in July. But here in May, after a really bad first month, Yandy Diaz has an 809 OPS for the month. Maybe that's a guy they try to thread the needle with all of a sudden down the road and say, hey, let's circle back to this guy.
Well, Paredes might not be surefire. He's having another really good season. Continues to do it.
He is. But again, do you trust him going from Tampa to Seattle? That's the question. All of his batted ball data suggests there's problems there.
The only man I trust going from anywhere to Seattle is with the initials KT.
Oh, yes.
That's probably it. Like, in reality, really trust. Do you trust anyone?
It's hard to.
That's available? Right, exactly. So, like, there is always going to be that if, and you are right. I mean, the batted ball profile is not great. If either was available, I guess I'd rather take Yandy Diaz. I think DH/first base offensive production is more needed than left side of infield offensive production. So that, in that sense, makes a lot more sense. And if they can get any semblance of a Yandy Diaz from last season, it's like the perfect thing the Mariners need. Low strikeout rate, gets on base a ton, hits for a really high average, and does essentially everything that this current Mariners lineup struggles to do.
And if they had traded for him in the offseason, he would have costed a lot. He may have costed one of the starting pitchers. Maybe it was a blessing in disguise, the way everything worked out, the way it worked out. Because if Yandy Diaz is going to become available again, the Mariners would have to pay a lot less to get him if he is not playing the way he was playing a season ago. If the Mariners traded for him right now, which they wouldn't because the Rays wouldn't give him up right now. But if the Mariners trade for him in July and he's having more of a so-so season, but he's gradually on the incline up, it's a blessing in disguise because you're going to give up a whole lot less for Yandy Diaz right now than you would have this winter.
Yeah. So I have one last question here on YouTube that I think would be good to wrap up with.
Yeah.
So in relation to all these trades, directly related, and we can go back to a discussion we had preseason. We were talking about the status of Jerry Dipoto, Justin Hollander, and Scott Service. It is, Lyle, almost June 1st, and we have no idea where that trio is as of next year. We still don't know if there's been a contract signed. I feel like if they did sign a contract, we would know. They'd announce it. And so the season ends in 4 months, and there is no guarantees for Jerry, Justin, or Scott Service for next season right now. So I think I know the answer to this question. Your feelings on this have not changed at all, right?
Not one bit.
Right.
Every problem the Mariners are enduring right now is tied back to ownership. I could go on a long tangent about this. All their problems tie back to that. Because, look, the Jorge Polanco trade was sound in every way. I give Jerry and Justin all the credit in the world for making that trade and doing what was necessary to pull it off. But you had the resources to go out and not have to worry about giving up prospects to, as Jeff Passan put it, try and thread the needle on some trades. It wouldn't be a problem. You could have gone out and signed a whole flurry of different guys. You could have gone out and made even more expensive trades for guys that could have been just absolutely slam dunk players. And this doesn't even date to this year specifically. I'm talking go back to the offseason after 2021 when this podcast had long before even started, and the two of us were over text banging the drum every single day to give Marcus Semien every penny that was in their pocket. But no, they couldn't do it because they wouldn't spend the money on it.
How about we go back to 2018?
What about, you mean when they wouldn't add at the deadline and add more payroll? There's another. Yep. Like all these things, again, and depending on what happens at the trade deadline too, in terms of who they acquire and who they don't acquire, whether they make a big splash move or they don't, if they don't make a big splash move, it all ties back again to ownership. Jerry and Justin don't want to give up the prospects because they want to keep their window open. They have to keep their window open because they know that they don't have the money to spend to go out and make moves that are gonna, that are a little bit riskier because they know that they have to be safe and secure with the trades that they make because they don't have the resources to go out, make a risky trade, and then have a fallback plan otherwise. Because they don't have the money to spend. They're not given the resources to spend. All of this ties back to ownership. So if Jerry Dipoto, Justin Hollander, and Scott Service, all three of them, are not here next year, I've said this before, but tune into that podcast when that happens because I'm going to have some words that day.
Yeah. I just can't believe it's June and there's been nothing. Yeah. It has happened in season both times they've signed extension. 2021, it was also in the summer where they signed their 3-year contract extension. But so here we are, right? I again can't it seemed you can't operate a franchise as a lame duck executive or a manager because you have to always move for the future. And you can't let it get to the trade deadline without something in hand. Because you can't. Because then how are you supposed to approach the trade deadline? Because Jerry, if you knew he wasn't going to be here next year, could go into the trade deadline and he could trade all of the Mariners' top 6 prospects for an incredible amount of probably temporary major league talent to go make a run at the playoffs. But then after that, perhaps Jerry leaves and goes somewhere else that he thinks better suits his needs in the offseason. And the rest of us are sitting here with what's left. And we don't want that to happen.
And who does that all tie back to, TJ?
Yeah, ties back to ownership every single time. Yep.
They better get those contracts done. That's all I'll say. And for those of you, look, TJ and I are Dipoto. I mean, for the most part, yeah, Dipoto truthers on this podcast. I certainly am. I know that. I'll speak for myself. That I have loved just about everything Jerry and Justin have done within the resources they've been given since they've been here. I'll say, especially since the start of the rebuild. If they're not here next year, yeah, I'm gonna have some problems. And again, if they're gone, by the way, people, it's ownership that is then in charge of finding a new baseball operations team. And I say team because if Jerry and Justin leave, all the smart people that are also in that front office are gonna go with them. They're gonna bring their own guys with them to wherever they head next. Whether Jerry and Justin stay as a package deal, whether they go get jobs in other places, you're gonna see the whole front office get gutted. Ownership is going to be in charge of bringing in new people they're going to be in charge of bringing in new people to form their front office. I will ask you all, do you trust this ownership group to bring in not just a front office that's going to have them winning, but a front office that is a step above what Jerry and Justin have done?
Right.
I leave you that question. And if your answer is yes, my then reciprocation to that is, what are they going to do with the financial restrictions that they will be given, no matter what, that can be better than what Jerry and Justin have done? Right. If it's up to me, they better be here. We better see contracts for them very soon. We don't want the trade deadline getting screwed up, and we better see them here for the foreseeable future. Because I'm sorry, if there is going to be a group in the front office that's going to get these guys to where the promised land is, especially with who sits at the top and is in charge of this whole franchise, it's them. It's Jerry and Justin. And that's my answer.
Yeah. Nothing anything short of getting Eric Neander from the Rays. That'll be it. That's the only person currently who operates with a stricter budget who does significantly better.
Right. But that would also cost significantly more money to pull him away from Tampa, which again goes back to the whole spending money thing in the first place. That would involve this ownership group having to pay a premium to go get a baseball exec that is well sought after. So,
yep.
And again, and you're assuming that he is absolutely better than Jerry and Justin. You can argue he is. I wouldn't say it's definitive. The Rays haven't won anything. They're in the playoffs a lot. I know. They haven't really done much with it. They don't really have the pitching staff that holds up in the playoffs most of the time. It's up to me.
They do usually have to trade most of them away.
They do. But who have they traded away that's been so significant that would have helped them get to a World Series in the last couple of years?
Blake Snell took them to a World Series.
Sure. He's also had rocky years in between 2020 and 2023. So
right. Well, Tyler Glasnow's pretty good.
Yeah.
McClanahan's hurt.
But you know what? He was never on the field.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I get it. I'll just say they have been to a World Series.
Yes, they have. They have.
Look, and operate with a budget that's at least $50 million lower, if not more.
Look, okay, Neander's a great executive. All I am making the point of is Jerry Dipoto has done and Justin Hollander have done a really good job since they've been here, especially I'll say since the start of the rebuild. Because just to wrap this up, when they were brought in here, they were told, find a way to get this team to the playoffs. You don't have much of a payroll budget. Get this team to the playoffs with a old roster on expiring contracts. They did what they could, couldn't do anything more. The rebuild was when their tenure really started because that was their group, their plan, their guys. And since that started, you done a good job, people. And I don't think you want to remember what this org looked like before they were here. And I don't want to see what this org has the potential to look like if they're gone. So I hope they stick around and I hope they get these contracts up.
Yeah, I don't want my last message to be confused. I'm 100% in for extensions.
Yes.
100%.
We both are.
As good as Neander is, I'd rather they just keep the current regime in place because the odds of them doing better is slim to none.
Yes. So, and TJ and I have been pretty united on that front for a while. Get these contracts done. Keep them around. Don't screw around with us. That's our thing.
Yeah. Oh. All right. Well, this has been good. Another Marine Lair podcast, Sunday Night Live. Again, everyone, thank you so much on the YouTube side and on the Instagram side. Thank you so much for watching. If you're on Instagram and are not already subscribed to our YouTube, go head on over to our YouTube page, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell. If you're watching on YouTube, do the same thing. Go over on Instagram, give us a follow. Don't miss anything we post. Every single Sunday night on YouTube and Instagram, we'll be live 7 o'clock Pacific time, taking your guys' questions. Until next week, we'll talk to you then.